The vacation my family took right after I finished my SATs was meant to be a celebration, but it began with a familiar bitterness. We were staying at a beachside condo, and my sister Clara had forgotten her favorite swimsuit. It was a new, expensive one she'd been excited to show off, and its absence prompted an immediate tantrum. She demanded that I make the 2-hour drive all the way back home to retrieve it for her. When I tried to refuse, pointing out how carsick I get, my father's patience snapped. He slapped me across the face so hard that my mouth filled with the coppery taste of blood. My mother, instead of intervening, sided with him. She blamed me, insisting that as the older sister, I should have reminded Clara to pack it, and therefore it was my duty to fix the mistake. The injustice of it all, layered on years of similar treatment, was too much to bear. I broke down, sobbing hysterically, right there in the living room. Their reaction was disgust. Calling me a jinx for ruining the start of the trip, they locked me inside the condo to reflect on my attitude. I was still locked in that room when the 300-foot tsunami hit the coast. With no way to escape, I was swallowed alive by the waves. When I opened my eyes again, the world snapped back into focus with jarring clarity. I was standing in that same condo, in that exact moment, with Clara's shrill voice demanding I drive home to get her swimsuit. The scene was identical, a perfect replay. This time, I didn't argue, I just nodded meekly, my voice a hollow echo of what it should have been. "Okay," I said. "I'll go get it. You guys go on and have fun at the beach." "Amelia, hurry up and go home to get my swimsuit, the blue one. I want to wear it in the water." The familiar, demanding voice was the jolt that tore me from my daze. I trembled, staring in shock at my sister Clara. She was angrily running her hands through her already messy hair, a half-unpacked suitcase sitting open at her feet. She had clearly turned it upside down in her frantic search for the new blue swimsuit she'd bought specifically for this trip. My parents, having already failed in their own search, were now trying to placate her while simultaneously pressuring me to just give in and make the drive before Clara's tantrum escalated into full-blown tears. This was it. This was the moment. I shot a terrified look past them, through the large glass doors of the balcony, at the calm, sparkling blue ocean outside. A cold, prickling sensation crawled over my skin, and my breath hitched in my throat. It felt as if a giant, invisible hand was squeezing my heart and lungs, making it impossible to draw a full breath. Down on the beach below, I could see a little girl perched on her father's shoulders, her small voice carrying on the wind as she cheered about how beautiful the ocean was. Everything was just as I remembered it. The entire scene was a perfect, horrifying replica. I was reborn. Reborn on the very day my family had taken their trip to the beach. And reborn just 4 hours before, a catastrophic 300-foot tsunami would surge from that placid ocean and erase everything in its path. We had only been inside the vacation condo for 10 minutes, and Clara was already trying to force me into a 4-hour round trip to fetch her swimsuit. The issue wasn't just the inconvenience. I get terribly carsick. I had already thrown up twice during the drive here. The thought of getting into a cab by myself and enduring another 4 hours of that churning nausea was unbearable. In my previous life, I had tried to reason with them. I told them I was sick and suggested we could simply buy Clara a new one. The street just outside our condo was lined with shops selling beachwear. My own swimsuit, after all, was a cheap $20 one they'd picked up for me from a roadside stand without a second thought. But my refusal had been met with a predictable barrage of criticism from my parents. "Can you even wear those cheap things from the street?" my mother had sneered. "What if your sister has an allergic reaction to the material? You're the older sister, Amelia. What's wrong with helping her out a little? I think you're just being selfish because you want to go swimming yourself. You're so grown, yet so immature." They lectured me with the same tired lines they always did, and then seamlessly transitioned into their favorite pastime, comparing me to my sister. They went on about how Clara was so delicate and cute, while I was quiet and withdrawn. How Clara was a smooth talker who could charm anyone, while I was sullen and silent. All I could do was press my lips together and endure it, saying nothing. "Look at that dead look on your face, playing the victim again," my dad had said, his voice rising. "No wonder you only got into a community college. Your sister is going to an Ivy League school after her scores come out. She's a future genius. And you? A community college kid. What's the point of you? Running errands is the most useful thing you can do, and you're not even willing to do that. My father hated it most when I went silent, so his words grew more and more vicious. He had conveniently forgotten the real reason I ended up in a community college. Or perhaps he hadn't. Perhaps he remembered perfectly well that right before my SATs, he had to be hospitalized for drinking himself into a stupor. My mom and Clara both made excuses about being too tired to help, so I, the one about to take the most important exams of my life, was left to take care of him around the clock. I was severely sleep deprived by the time I sat for the tests, and predictably, I bombed them. I only got into a community college, and my family refused to let me retake the year. They wanted me to finish my degree as quickly as possible so I could get a job and start contributing to the household finances. No one in the family had actually forgotten this. They just all collectively decided it was a perfectly reasonable sacrifice for me to make. As long as my sister could get into a good university, that's all that mattered. As long as Clara was happy, that's all that mattered. For instance, when Clara had expressed a desire to go to the beach after the SATs, my parents had immediately arranged the trip. I was even allowed to tag along, a rare treat. It was the first time in my 19 years of life that my family had ever taken me on a trip with them. Of course, my role was primarily to carry almost all of the luggage. And now I was expected to make a 2-hour drive back home simply to get a swimsuit. Amelia, are you deaf? I told you to go home and get my swimsuit. Clara's voice turned shrill, snapping me out of my memories as she saw me just staring into space. A cold chill ran down my spine, and I instinctively took a step away from the window. It felt as if the calm, peaceful ocean had already transformed into a monster, baring its fangs just for me. Who could have possibly imagined that in just 4 short hours, a terrifying tsunami would surge from the deep and destroy everything in sight? Amelia, this is your fault for not reminding your sister to pack it. Do you think she would have forgotten otherwise? Get going and get it now, my mom scolded, glaring at me with disappointment. I took a deep breath, forcing myself out of the paralyzing terror of the coming wave. I stared at my mother, a question forming in my mind that I'd never dared to ask before. Why should I have reminded Clara? I didn't know she would forget. And besides, why is her forgetfulness my responsibility? The last time, I had tried to argue back. In response, my dad had lunged at me, slapping me so hard I fell to the floor. I told you to go, so go. What's with all the back talk? Can't you see your sister is upset? He had roared, pointing a finger at my face while completely ignoring the blood trickling from the corner of my lip. That slap had been the final straw that broke me. For 19 years, I never understood what I did wrong, why my own family treated me with such disdain. So I wailed, screaming and crying until I nearly passed out from lack of air. Clara just got more annoyed by my outburst and stormed out of the condo. She went down to the beach to have fun, telling me over her shoulder to go get her swimsuit after I was done with my crying fit. She said she had to wear it tomorrow, if not today, since they were planning to stay for 3 days and 2 nights. My parents shot me disgusted looks. After my father gave me a few kicks for good measure, they locked me in the room and told me I wasn't allowed to come out. Crying won't help you, my mother had said through the door. Just stay in there and think about what you did wrong. You can come out when you're ready to go get the swimsuit. They left with a cold snort, the sound of the lock clicking behind them echoing the emptiness in my chest. They had treated me as if I were just a piece of luggage, something to be casually tossed in a room and forgotten. I hugged my knees, huddled in the condo, my heart feeling dead inside as my shoulders shook uncontrollably. It wasn't until evening that the calm ocean suddenly turned violent. The tide churned like boiling water, crashing toward the shore in a furious display. By the time I realized what was happening, a 300-foot wave was charging toward the coast like some kind of vengeful demon god. I screamed, frantically twisting the doorknob and trying to escape, but it wouldn't budge. My only choice was to rush to the window and scream for help. That's when I saw them. My parents were pulling Clara into their car and speeding away. I saw it so clearly. Before they got in, they looked up at my window. The condo was only on the 3rd floor. They saw me. But they drove away without a second glance. disappearing in an instant. I died in a tsunami of apocalyptic proportions. Amelia, are you mute? I'm asking you one last time, are you going to get my swimsuit or not? Clara's voice cut through my memories for a third time. She was completely furious now, her face red with anger at my continued silence. It was because I hadn't said a word. My dad was on his feet in an instant, his hand already raised to strike me. The scene from my past life was about to repeat itself. I would be beaten, then locked in this condo to await my death. I quickly sidestepped his advance and forced a smile onto my face. Clara, don't be angry. This trip is all about you having a good time. I'll do whatever you say, sis. Then, I turned my attention to my dad. Dad, I can bring back that nice bottle of scotch you like too, so you can have some with dinner tonight. My dad's hand stopped midair. The anger on his face slowly faded. That's more like it. Go on then. A 4-hour round trip means you'll be back before it gets dark. We'll still have plenty of time to have fun. He lowered his hand and turned to pacify Clara. Clara, don't be mad. Dad will take you for a ride on the jet ski later. I want to ride in the helicopter too, for pictures, Clara demanded, pouting. I knew about the helicopter rides offered at the resort. They cost hundreds of dollars for a 10-minute flight. If I had ever dared to make such an expensive request, my dad would have kicked me without a second thought. But for Clara, he immediately agreed. My mom gave a thumbs up, beaming with pride. Clara, you're so brave for riding in a helicopter. Clara preened under the praise, shooting me a triumphant glance. She was showing off the love she received so effortlessly, while all I had ever received was scolding and abuse. My heart still twisted with a familiar pain, but it quickly turned into a cold, hard indifference. Why would someone who's already died once care about such a pathetic scrap of affection? Mom, Dad, Clara, you guys stay here and have fun. I'm going to go get the swimsuit now, I said, my voice carefully obedient. I left the condo, leaving my satisfied family behind. They were ready to wait for my return in 4 hours, completely unaware that in those same 4 hours the tide would mysteriously recede from the shore, only to return with the force of the heavens. Maybe it was an undersea earthquake, or maybe a volcanic eruption. Whatever the cause, an unprecedented tsunami was about to obliterate this entire resort town. I remembered it clearly from my previous life. The wave was taller than our condo building, which meant it was at least 300 feet high. A 300-foot tsunami is a rarity in recorded human history. The one in Indonesia in 2004, which shocked the world by affecting 14 countries and leaving over 270,000 people dead or missing, reached a maximum height of only 167 feet. Of course, local terrain and elevation greatly affect a tsunami's impact. The same wave might not cause the same level of devastation in a different location. But the coming tsunami was 300 feet high. Even if our city, A City, had relatively high terrain with many hills and forests, a 300-foot wave was an unimaginable force of nature. I couldn't let my mind dwell on it for too long. The image of a living hell was already forming in my head. A sense of extreme urgency washed over me. 4 hours. How was I going to survive? I had seen the tsunami with my own eyes in my past life. That monstrous 300-foot wall of water was absolutely terrifying. I had to plan for the worst-case scenario, which was that the entirety of A City and even the neighboring coastal cities would be completely wiped out. Theoretically, if I could get on a plane and fly 1,000 miles away, I wouldn't have to worry about a thing. But there was no time for that now. It would be hard enough to even get out of A City itself. It was the day after the SATs had ended and the roads were clogged with vacation traffic. We were stuck in traffic jams for the entire drive here. At this rate, I'd be lucky to get home in 2 hours, let alone escape the region. So, I couldn't just think about escaping the city. I needed to find a safe place nearby. A tall building seemed like a good option at first, but I immediately dismissed the idea. In the face of an apocalyptic tsunami like that one, all buildings would seem laughably fragile. Even the tallest skyscraper could collapse in an instant under that kind of pressure. The shelter had to be solid, and it had to be high. A mountain. On the eastern outskirts of A City was a place called Fisherman's Peak. It was a scenic area with a maximum elevation of over 4,500 feet. It had good infrastructure, including a cable car system, and an old temple at the very top where I could take shelter. I used to volunteer there during school breaks, so I was familiar with the layout. Best of all, it was only a 40-minute drive from the resort, and I could take the highway to get there. It was 2 p.m. now. If I could get near Fisherman's Peak, I'd still have enough time to stock up on some essential supplies to take up the mountain with me. That was it. That was my plan. With my survival plan set, I went downstairs. Just as I was about to call for a car, I saw a construction worker walking by carrying a big tool bag. The bag was overflowing with various tools and supplies, including several boxes of nails. I stopped him and managed to buy a bag of long, sharp nails from him for $10. Then, I walked over to the parking lot and found my family's car. After quickly checking to make sure no one was around, I scattered the nails under all 4 tires, making sure the points were facing up. The second they started the car and tried to drive away, the tires would be punctured. The image of my family frantically trying to escape the tsunami while their car's tires deflated was just too beautiful to resist. I dusted off my hands and hurried on my way. I had to get to Fisherman's Peak, stock up on supplies, and get up that mountain before it was too late. The car I called was speeding down the highway, but my hopes for a clear road were quickly dashed. It was just as congested as it had been on the way in. A drive that should have normally taken 40 minutes stretched into a grueling hour and a half. I was getting anxious, sitting in the back seat and praying the whole time for the traffic to move faster, even just a little faster. Once we finally got off the highway, Fisherman's Peak was only 5 minutes away. I let out a breath of relief and checked the time on my phone. 3:35 p.m. I remembered the tsunami had hit around 6 p.m. in my past life. That meant I still had 2.5 hours to prepare, and I didn't need a huge amount of supplies, just enough food and water to last for about a week. Tsunamis, for all their destructive power, hit hard but recede relatively quickly. Once I survived the initial impact, I could just wait for the national rescue teams to arrive. It was a reluctant choice. If I had the chance, who wouldn't want to hoard more supplies just in case? But I was on my own, with limited time and strength. Carrying a week's worth of supplies up a mountain was already pushing my physical limit. As I was thinking, the car passed a small residential area. I had the driver pull over and headed straight for the local supermarket. I bought a large backpack and filled it with small, high-calorie items like canned food, beef jerky, and compressed biscuits. Then, I filled a separate tote bag with bulkier things like self-heating rice meals, packages of spicy fish, cured meats, and dried sweet potatoes. I could only take a small amount of each, but one big backpack and a tote bag would have to be enough. Finally, I went to a nearby pharmacy and bought some common medicines like ibuprofen, amoxicillin, and cold and flu tablets. By the time I was done, with the heavy pack on my back and a full bag in each hand, my whole body ached. But this stockpile would be enough to last me a long time. If I was frugal, it could even last for more than just a week. As for water, the most important resource, I only bought 3 large bottles. One reason was that it was simply too heavy to carry more, and the second was that Fisherman's Peak had a natural waterfall near the summit. I wouldn't be short on drinking water. I double-checked my supplies, then called another car to take me straight to the entrance of Fisherman's Peak. It was now 4:36 p.m. The tsunami would arrive in 1 hour and 24 minutes. Just then, my phone rang. It was Clara, I answered. She immediately started ordering me around without even a hello. Are you home yet? Remember to bring my sun hat, the white one. If you've already left the house, you need to turn around right now. You have to bring my sun hat. Listening to Clara's bossy, entitled tone on the phone, I couldn't help but let out a small, bitter laugh. For over a decade, she had treated me like her personal servant. I had gotten used to it over the years, always catering to her every whim, giving in to her demands, terrified of making her angry and suffering the inevitable consequences. If I hadn't already died once at their hands, I would probably still be afraid of her. But now, Clara could no longer scare me. Of course, I didn't argue back. There was still over an hour until the tsunami hit. If I pissed Clara off now, with her notoriously short temper, she might lose interest in playing on the beach and decide to come back to the condo to deal with me. If that happened, the 3 of them would have a much better chance of survival, and I couldn't have that. Okay, Clara, I'm turning the car around to go get your hat now. I replied, my voice dripping with manufactured sweetness and obedience. I might be a little late getting back to the beach, okay? Clara let out a snort of laughter on the other end. I just love it when you're so pathetic. Keep it up. Beside her, I could hear my mom's voice cut in. Amelia, since you're making an extra trip anyway, you might as well bring my makeup bag. I wanted to bring it earlier, but it was too much trouble to carry. I sneered inwardly, but agreed out loud. Okay, Mom, I'll be there soon. That's right. Be a good girl and everyone will be happy, my dad added, giving me a rare compliment. I was still sneering as I hung up the phone. A moment later, the car arrived at the Fisherman's Peak scenic area. I didn't get out at the main entrance where the tourists were, but at the west gate. There was a staff path there that I used to take when I was a volunteer. I looked up at the towering peak, a profound sense of security washing over me. There was no safer place to be than this. I took a deep breath and started up the mountain with my heavy load of supplies. The guard in the security booth was dozing off in the afternoon heat and didn't even notice me slip past. It was probably because of the temperature, which was at least 85 degrees. Only a fool would go hiking in the middle of the day in this kind of weather. As a result, I didn't see a single other tourist on my way up the path. There were probably some tourists at the park, but they would be using the main entrance in the cable car. The climb was exhausting. I was panting, forced to stop every 10 steps to catch my breath. By the time I reached the halfway point, I was dizzy and my vision was starting to blur at the edges, but I had finally made it. There was a large plaza here and a cable car station. Even though there weren't many tourists around, the cable cars were still running. I got on an empty car, wiping the sweat from my brow and checking my phone. It was 5:26 p.m. 34 minutes until the tsunami. The sun was still beating down relentlessly and there was no wind on the mountain. There was no outward sign of the coming disaster. But my heart began to race. The apocalyptic feeling from my past life washed over me, a terrifying echo in my memory. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the breeze created by the moving cable car on my face. I could faintly smell something unusual in the air, a strange, briny scent. The tsunami had probably already formed in the deep sea. It just hadn't reached the coast yet. At 5:47 p.m., after the cable car took me on a scenic loop around the upper portion of the mountain, I finally arrived at the summit. Before me stood the ancient, quaint temple. The air shimmered under the direct sun, and there was still no one else in sight. I didn't have time to look for other people. I found a quiet side hall and slipped inside. It was a small place for worship, dedicated to the statue of a celestial master. I used to be responsible for dusting this very statue when I was a volunteer here. I gave a small, respectful bow to the statue and sat down on the floor, feeling dizzy and weak. I was exhausted and overheated from the climb. But at least I had made it. I was sitting in a temple over 4,000 feet above sea level. I was completely safe. It was 5:52 p.m., 8 minutes until the tsunami. I twisted open a bottle of water and started chugging it down, and then, as if on cue, Zoe's call came again. The second I answered, she started yelling, "Did you break your legs? Why aren't you back yet? I want to wear my swimsuit and my hat and take pictures on the beach before the sun sets. I'm dying of impatience here." My parents were chiming in from the background, their voices adding to the chorus of demands. "The sun is about to set, Amelia. Get back here now. We need to take pictures of your sister." A cold smile touched my lips. Sunset pictures. They were all about to die. With no more reason to hold back my true feelings, I responded with a cathartic burst of glee. "I'm not coming back to the beach. I'm at home enjoying the air conditioning." "What?" Clara was stunned silent for a moment, then she erupted. "Amelia, are you messing with me? If you're not coming back, then what about my swimsuit and my hat? Who's going to get them for me?" "Are you disabled?" I asked, my voice calm. "Do you need me to get everything for you? You're 18 years old, and you act like a child with a developmental disorder. I'm talking about your brain." "Huh?" Clara was clearly baffled by my sudden change in demeanor. The line went quiet for a second. Then I heard her roar. "Amelia, what did you just say to me? Did you call me disabled? Did you say I have no brain?" Her shout shocked my parents, who were right beside her. My dad snatched the phone from her, his voice dripping with menace. "Amelia, you dare talk to your sister like that? Are you insane?" My mom's voice crowded in next. Amelia, what did you say about your sister? Say it again. Your sister is a disabled, brain-dead idiot. Disabled, brain-dead idiot. Disabled, brain-dead idiot. I said it many times, enjoying the sound of the words. You. My mom completely lost her composure. The precious baby she had coddled and spoiled for 18 years had never been insulted like this, especially not by the family slave. My dad bellowed into the phone, Amelia, you just wait. I'm going to chop you up and feed you to the dogs when I get back. Click. I hung up. I wasn't interested in listening to any more of their empty threats. I just had to wait for the last 3 minutes to pass. It was 5:57 p.m. During those last 3 minutes, since I wasn't answering their calls, my family moved the battle to our family group chat. A flood of angry texts and furious voice messages poured in, but I ignored them all, just watching the clock on my phone. 1 minute left. Clara had completely lost her mind by now. She stopped cursing at me and instead started spamming the chat with pictures. Pictures of the ocean, pictures of the beach, and dozens of selfies of herself. She tagged me in every single one. Amelia, you're so pathetic. Why am I the one having fun at the beach while you had to crawl back home? Amelia, you actually had some guts today, I'll give you that. Too bad the whole family hates you and is going to kill you when we get home. I've never been hit in my life, you know. Amelia, get your ass back here. Get back to the resort right now. I'm going to tear your fucking mouth off. I wanted to laugh. It was just too funny. An apocalyptic tsunami was 1 minute away, and here I was, safe and sound in the best possible shelter, surrounded by a pile of supplies. And there was Clara, having a complete meltdown on the beach, screaming like a shrew into her phone. I almost felt sorry for her. So, I decided to send one last message to comfort her. My dear Clara, you must be thirsty after all that yelling. Why don't you have a nice big drink of seawater? After all, the tide was about to go out. If she didn't drink now, she'd miss her chance. The next second, at exactly 6 p.m., the evening sun suddenly seemed to dim. The group chat went silent. Clara stopped her rant mid-sentence. My heart leaped into my throat. Was the tide starting its eerie retreat? Was that why my family had suddenly stopped harassing me? Unexpectedly, my dad sent me a private message. Amelia, you fucking went to Fisherman's Peak? I was wondering why you were taking so long. Are you sick in the head? Who goes hiking in this heat? I frowned. How did he know where I was? A second later, a video call from him came through. I thought about it for a moment and decided to answer. I was curious, and I also wanted to witness the tsunami firsthand this time. The video connected, showing my parents and Clara in the frame. They were sitting under a large beach umbrella, still enjoying the gentle sea breeze. The tsunami hadn't come yet. My heart tightened with a sudden fear. Did me being reborn somehow change the timeline? Amelia, what are you doing at Fisherman's Peak? If I hadn't secretly put a tracker on your phone, I never would have found you. My mom yelled as soon as she saw my face. It clicked. She could track my phone. Of course she could. Amelia, so you went hiking, huh? You really are a psycho going hiking in this heat, ha ha ha. Clara wasn't even angry anymore. She was just mocking me. I get it now. We yelled at you, so you ran off to play by yourself, but you're so dumb you picked the hottest place to go. I didn't say anything, just watched the ocean on the screen behind them. It was still calm and blue, with waves gently lapping at the shore. Could it be that there was no tsunami this time? Are you mute again? You think I'll let you off the hook just because you're hiding on a mountain? Let me tell you, when I get home, I'm going to break your legs, my dad threatened, his face a mask of malice. I had no doubt he would actually try to kill me. I remained silent, my eyes glued to the image of the ocean, my heart pounding harder and harder in my chest. Finally, at 6:04 p.m., the water began to move strangely. Then, with shocking speed, it rapidly receded from the shore. Seeing this, I relaxed and couldn't help but smile. The timeline hadn't changed. I just couldn't pinpoint the exact time it would start. My dear sister, you can still smile? Dad is going to kill you, Clara sneered, but she was cut off mid-sentence. The beach around them had erupted into chaos. People were shouting in confusion. What the hell? Where's all the water? My dad turned his head, his brow furrowed in confusion. Yeah, where did the water go? I'm going to go check it out. He handed the phone to my mom. She took it, looking out at the now exposed seabed with the same bewildered expression as everyone else. No one was paying attention to me anymore, but the video call was still connected. Suddenly, Clara gasped. I read about this in a textbook once. Don't you think it could be a tsunami? Clara, for all her faults, had figured it out instantly. But since she'd never seen one in real life, she didn't run. She just stood there gaping, even taking pictures with another phone. Up ahead, some lifeguards were waving their arms frantically and shouting, get back, run! That single word, run, snapped a lot of people out of their daze. Some of the tourists started turning and running back towards the land. People are like sheep. Once a few start running, the rest follow. The beach became a chaotic mess of fleeing bodies. My dad came rushing back and scooped Clara into his arms. Run! People are saying it's a tsunami. My mom, terrified, clutched the phone and sprinted after them. All I could see on my screen was a shaky, blurry mess of panicked crowds. I sighed to myself. These people weren't going to make it. Unless they were blessed with some kind of miracle and could outrun the tsunami in a car, they were all going to die. But today, with so many people and cars trying to leave at once, the roads were hopelessly gridlocked. Who could possibly outrun a tsunami? Even on a clear day with no traffic, almost no one can outrun a tsunami. As I was thinking, my parents and sister reached the parking lot. At the same time, I heard a massive, earth-shaking roar through the phone's microphone. It was the sound of the ocean's fury. Oh my God! Oh my God, the sea! Look! My mom shrieked, pointing her phone at the ocean. My dad's voice was trembling too. It's so high. Get in the car now. Dad, let me get in first. Clara's voice was tinged with tears as she scrambled into the backseat of the car. The three of them piled into the vehicle like a panicked school of fish. As the phone shook, I finally saw it. A 300-foot wall of water stretched across the entire horizon, a monstrous, churning dragon with no end in sight. The water was no longer blue, but a murky, churning blackish gray, like sludge from the depths of hell, surging relentlessly forward. Screams and cries echoed in the storm-force winds the wave brought with it. Swaths of people were pushed over and trampled in the stampede to escape. It was a scene of utter, unimaginable devastation. Vroom. The car started. My dad gripped the steering wheel and slammed his foot on the gas pedal. The car shot forward only to be blocked immediately by other cars. The parking lot was pure chaos. Hundreds of cars were trying to escape at once. There was no way out. Just hit them, Dad! Ram the car in front of us! Clara screamed, trembling with fear. My dad didn't say a word, but he floored the accelerator. I heard a loud crash through the phone. It seemed he had successfully pushed the car in front of him out of the way. But then someone screamed, Are you fucking crazy? Why did you hit us? My wife is pregnant. Honey, oh my God, get out of the way. Clara cursed, and my dad rammed the car again. It was a stroke of luck that their car had been parked near the exit. After hitting several more cars and people, they miraculously made it onto the main road. We're out! I'm speeding up! Hold on tight, my dad roared, pushing the accelerator to the floor, no longer caring if he ran anyone else over. Zoe looked back at the ocean and shrieked, Faster! It's about to hit the shore! The tsunami was too fast. A 300-foot wave crashing onto land. How could anyone imagine such a horror? This is as fast as it goes. Don't be scared. Daddy's here. My dad grunted, trying to reassure them. But a second later, he screamed as if he'd seen a ghost. We have no air. What's happening? All 4 tires are flat. I laughed out loud. My dad had been in such a rush to escape that he hadn't noticed the warning lights on the dashboard. It wasn't until he was on the main road that he realized something was terribly wrong. Why were all 4 tires flat? My mom stammered. Honey, don't joke around. Go faster. Why are you slowing down? How the hell am I supposed to go faster? All the air is gone, my dad yelled, trying to accelerate, but the car just kept getting slower and slower. The road was also filling with obstacles. Luggage dropped by fleeing tourists, leaves and branches torn from the trees by the wind, all blocking the car's path. If the tires had air, he could have just plowed through everything. But with no air, the car was easily stopped by the debris. Clara started crying, and in a panic, she grabbed the steering wheel. Go faster! Don't you know how to drive? It was a desperate, foolish move. Her sudden jerk of the wheel sent the car swerving directly into a palm tree. The three of them were thrown forward by the impact. Clara, are you crazy? My dad yelled in a rage. He tried to reverse, but the car just whined and sputtered, its frame crumpled against the tree. He made a split-second decision and jumped out of the car. Everyone out now! He shouted. No, I don't want to. I'm scared, Clara wailed from the back seat. My mom had to drag her out, asking my dad what they should do now. Flag down a car! Flag one down! My dad screamed, waving his arms frantically at the passing traffic. Help! Help us! Please! Give us a ride! The entire road was a chaotic mess of speeding cars. No one was going to stop for them. I watched, completely fascinated. This was more thrilling than any Hollywood blockbuster. I sat cross-legged in the temple, sipping my water and nibbling on some spicy fish from one of the packages I'd bought. Amidst the shaky camera footage, a car finally appeared, driving straight towards them. My dad's face lit up with hope. Hey, friend, stop for a second. My mom also ran forward to try and block the car, pleading with the driver to stop. But not only did the car not stop, it sped up. The driver leaned out the window and screamed, "You son of a bitch! You're the one who hit my car and made my wife miscarry." It was the owner of the car they had rammed in the parking lot. The color drained from my dad's face, and he quickly dodged out of the way. But my mom wasn't fast enough. The car hit her, and I heard a sickening crack. She collapsed to the ground, wailing in agony. The phone finally fell from her hand, the camera pointing up at the sky. I could hear my mom's cries. It hurts! Honey, help me! Please help me! My dad ran over, his lips trembling. Your leg is broken. Clara, help your mother! Clara immediately refused. No way, Dad, let's just run. The tsunami is coming. Forget about Mom. Clara? What did you just say? My mom was so shocked that the pain in her leg seemed to vanish for a second. Clara's voice was hard and cold. Your leg is broken. How are we supposed to save you? It's your own fault for not getting out of the way faster. You? My mom probably never dreamed that her most beloved daughter, the one she had sacrificed everything for, would say something so cruel to her. There was no time to argue. My dad made his decision. He threw Clara over his shoulder and ran toward a nearby hotel building without a second glance back at his injured wife. By now, the roar of the tsunami was getting terrifyingly loud, like an apocalyptic beast closing in for the kill. I was so scared by the sound that I almost dropped my package of spicy fish. But then I remembered I was on a mountain, thousands of feet up. What was there to be afraid of? So I went back to eating my snack. The next moment, the camera's view shifted and my mom's pale, dirt-streaked face filled the screen. In her final moments, she had somehow managed to remember the phone. She was propping herself up with one hand, dragging her broken body along the ground while clutching the phone with the other. She was screaming into the camera, "Amelia, I knew you were still there. Save me. Save your mother." I chewed my spicy fish and looked at her on the screen with a blank expression. What am I? A god? Amelia, Mom was wrong. You got to the mountain ahead of time. You must have known the tsunami was coming. You have a way to save me, don't you? My mom was sharp. She had figured out my plan. Unfortunately, in a life or death situation, her mind was no longer clear. I really wasn't a god. I was powerless to help her, even if I had wanted to. So I just shook my head at the screen. I can't save you. My mom burst into tears, wailing inconsolably. Amelia, Mom was wrong. I was so wrong. Clara is a monster. I shouldn't have loved her so much. Chloe, save me. Mom will only love you from now on. She craned her neck, looking like a corpse crawling out of the water. I watched her in silence. 3 seconds later, the tsunami slammed down like a giant hand from the sky. Boom. Everything in the camera's view was obliterated. All that was left was a murky, swirling chaos of water and debris and then darkness. The video call ended. My heart clenched for a second. Then I let out a long, slow breath. Mom, maybe in the next life, you'll be a better mother. After my mom was gone, I didn't lose my feed of the tsunami's chaos. My dad and sister started spamming me with voice messages. I was surprised. Did they really have nothing better to do in the middle of a disaster? I played one of my dad's messages. Amelia, I made it into the Royal Sands Hotel. I'm running to the roof. This hotel is over 300 feet tall. I'm taking your sister to the roof. Call 911 for help. I tried calling, but no one is picking up. Remember the Royal Sands Hotel? I was speechless. This was an apocalyptic tsunami. What good would calling 911 do? Even the rescue helicopters wouldn't dare get close to the coast in these conditions. Clearly, my dad had lost his mind. He was so terrified that I was the only person he could think to turn to. He had to beg me for help. Just as I expected, his pleas continued. Amelia, you got to the mountain early. You must have known the tsunami was coming, right? What should I do? Dad, is the hotel going to collapse? When I didn't answer, he sent another one. My dear daughter, Dad really does love you. I'm just not good at expressing it. A father's love is silent. Don't be mad at your dad, okay? I felt sick to my stomach. Fear really does drop your IQ to 0. Just like my mom, he thought that because I had escaped early, I somehow had a way to save them. But I didn't. I listened to Clara's voice message next. Her voice was rushed and panicked, but she was forcing a sickly sweet tone. Sister, I'm with Dad. Can you please think of a way to help us? The tsunami is almost here. I'm so scared. If I remembered correctly, she hadn't called me sister in over a decade. No, that's not right. She had called me that many times, but always dripping with sarcasm. Like, my dear sister, why are you getting yelled at again? Or, dearest sister, don't you want my new phone? Mom bought me the latest iPhone, you know. And sister, I actually really like you. Haha, just kidding. Things like that, there were too many to count. So I replied to her. My dearest sister, I do have a way to save you, but I'm not going to. Clara fell for it. She continued to beg, pleading for me to save her life. I remained unmoved, smiling as I listened to her desperate performance. Finally, she lost her composure again and reverted to her usual self, screaming, "You bitch! Are you messing with me? I'll fucking kill you." My dad was pretty much the same. He sent dozens of voice messages, but I didn't listen to a single one. So, just like Clara, he became a mess of fear and rage and completely lost it. Amelia, do you have a heart? We're your family. You knew the tsunami was coming and you just ran away by yourself. Are you even human? My dad was playing the family card, so I hit him with a royal flush. I don't have a family because you're all about to die. Amelia, you piece of shit. My dad's voice message cut off mid-sentence. The last few seconds were filled with the sound of churning waves and Clara's terrified screams. Evidently, the tsunami had reached the Royal Sands Hotel. Just when I thought it was all over, Clara sent one last voice message. You bitch. I'll haunt you even as a ghost. Ah, the building is collapsing. Ah, Amelia, you'll die a horrible death. The message ended with a deafening crash, mixed with the sounds of waves slamming into walls, glass shattering, and the building groaning as it tilted. And then, it was over. I, the one who was supposed to die a horrible death, was still alive. And that loving, happy family was dead. All of them. My phone finally went silent. I walked out of the temple and stood on the viewing platform, looking out in the direction of the ocean. I was probably about 20 miles from the coast, so I couldn't see the ocean itself, nor could I see the initial waves yet. But the air was vibrating intensely, and a strange, salty, fishy smell had already spread all the way to Fisherman's Peak. The peak itself was now in an uproar. I finally saw some of the other tourists who had been on the mountain. They were all staring at their phones, their faces filled with shock and terror. There was a tsunami! They're saying the wave was 300 feet high. Do you think it will reach us here? We're not that far from the resort. It's over. The resort was packed with tourists today. Oh, God. A thick, anxious tension filled the air, and soon that anxiety exploded like a thunderclap in everyone's hearts. Because on the horizon, as far as the eye could see, a black line of water appeared. It was the flood surge, the tsunami's inland rush, and it was heading straight for the city of A City. "Oh my God, run!" Many people screamed, starting to scramble down the mountain in a mindless panic. Fortunately, someone with a clear head yelled at the top of their lungs, "Don't go down! Everyone stay on the mountain! This is the safest place to be!" The chaotic crowd surged back toward the summit. Some were on their phones, trying to call their families, telling them to run for their lives. Others were desperately calling for help, the sound of busy signals filling the air. I stared at the approaching black dragon of water, my heart cold with a mix of dread and resignation. The temple priest came out, urging everyone not to stand on the peak because a tsunami of this size would bring hurricane-force winds with it. So, everyone crowded into the temple for shelter. I went back to my own little sanctuary in the side hall. I had already hidden my supplies behind the Celestial Master statue, only taking them out when I needed to eat. A few moments later, a deafening roar ripped through the air as if the sky itself was being torn apart. A furious wind mixed with a thick, rainy mist, and the terrifying floodwaters slammed into the base of Fisherman's Peak. The entire mountain seemed to tremble, and my heart trembled with it. But I knew Fisherman's Peak would not fall. The sound of the roaring water was relentless. The entire city of A City was being submerged. A torrential downpour began, and the air was filled with particles of sea mud, casting a hazy, dreamlike pall over everything. After nightfall, visibility dropped even lower, but the sound of the surge had noticeably quieted. A normal tsunami might last for an hour or two at most. Even a 300-foot one couldn't last forever. The water was now in its receding phase. The sea was reclaiming its own. But the damage was done, and it was irreversible. I lay down on a prayer cushion behind the statue and drifted into a fitful, uneasy sleep. It wasn't a peaceful rest. I was plagued by nightmares. I dreamed I was being swallowed by the tsunami again, suffocating, my skin freezing cold. But just as I was about to die, two strangers with blurry faces were trying desperately to save me, a man and a woman fighting for my life. In my dream, I cried out, "Mom! Dad!" I woke with a start, tears streaming down my face. The faceless mother and father from my dream were gone. I sat there for a long time, completely still. The dream was a reflection of my own heart, wasn't it? I longed for my parents' love, but the parents in my dream had no faces. Because the parents with faces, my real parents, had never loved me. They would never enter my dreams to save me. I shook my head and stood up, my heart as hard and cold as stone. The sun was rising outside. Helicopters were circling in the sky, their loudspeakers broadcasting words of encouragement. To all citizens, the tsunami has receded. Please do not panic. Rescue teams have been deployed. Please remain orderly. The tourists ran to the edge of the peak, waving their arms and crying with joy. Many more scrambled down the mountain, desperate to find their families. I looked down at the world below. All I could see was an endless expanse of yellow, muddy water. It was seawater, now receding. After it was gone, all that would be left was a landscape of devastation, flooded rivers and fields and bodies. The rescue teams were indeed here. Helicopters and lifeboats were already in action. I had to laugh at myself. I had been so worried, stockpiling all those supplies for nothing. The sun was out. I wouldn't be needing them. 3 months later, life in the coastal region had mostly returned to normal. I was called to the police station several times, always to identify a body they thought might be one of my family members. But it was never them. My family was probably pulverized by the force of the wave or dragged far out to sea. Either way, I would never see them again. I couldn't even give them a proper burial. Their estate naturally passed to me, a condo, 3 commercial properties they owned, and a small apartment building they rented out. Oh, and $3.8 million in savings. In a city like A City, assets like these were more than enough for me to live however I wanted for the rest of my life. I found myself quietly wondering for a long time why my family, who had so much money, had treated me the way they did. They wouldn't even buy me a decent swimsuit, just a cheap $20 one from a roadside stand. It wasn't that I minded the cheap swimsuit itself. It was the fact that my sister got a brand name one that cost over $300. In the end, all I could do was rub the persistent ache in my chest and force myself to let it go. Some parents are just born biased, or maybe they're just born without a heart, but I had a heart. That's why I was always trapped in a cycle of pain and despair, desperate for even a single drop of their love to fill it. So childish, Amelia. From now on, just love yourself.